the person who you're trying to reach.
Precisely because our party and movement is growing so rapidly, and during this severe crisis of the imperialist system, the whole rotten system is experiencing a very serious kind of stress, and and our opportunities are extremely great. Our party is growing quite rapidly to a point that it's sometimes even difficult to process the number of people who are coming into the organization quickly and efficiently. It also means that our enemies become more and more concerned about what it is that we do and our capacity, our growing capacity to shape the narrative of the struggle in this country and throughout the world. And so we want to talk about how to understand the question of protecting our movement so that we don't have to go through again, our people, our struggle, our movement doesn't have to continue to go through the process that's responsible for most of you who are on this call being here as you are. The fact is that for 40-some odd years, the party has been in existence. And for most of that time, the party has been involved in a process of trying to rebuild after the U.S. government successfully destroyed our movement for happiness and for the return of the resources of our people. And our movement that is so clear on what it is that we're about. We have an understanding of the nature of the social system itself, that we are not political ambulance chasers, simply involved in following the last incident that happened this week or last week and allowing that determine what it is that we are about. The fact is that we are part of a movement that if one might perceive as arrogantly assuming that the world can be changed and that we can be the primary agents in creating a new world. We're an organization of African internationalists. And the U.S. government and most of the imperialist enemies of our people recognize that there is a crisis and that they're fighting every day to try to maintain this crisis, to contain this crisis, I should say. And an aspect of the crisis, that's the underbelly, the underpinning, the thing that sometimes is experienced in certain ways, but not acknowledged as much, is the economy. And as we know, the economy that we exist in is a parasitic economy where the whole rotten white nationalist capitalist system exists as a consequence of having enslaved people and taking people's lands and resources. And to the extent that people become effective in taking back their lands, their resources, their freedom, their dignity, then the social system, the economy suffers in a very serious way. And so that's what we're seeing in terms of this. There's an economic crisis. Again, it's not as obvious in some ways as the political manifestation of this crisis. The fact that it is a parasitic economy means that politically there have been all kinds of institutions, organizations, and processes created to maintain the economic foundation of the whole society. So when we say the economic foundation, we're talking about colonialism. We're talking about the maintenance of the theft of the land of the indigenous people here in this country, including the Mexicans who suffer seriously on both sides of the border as a consequence of the United States attack and theft of that land in 1848 that has now created whole new additions to the territories that they had already claimed through attack on the indigenous people. So all of this stuff has to be maintained, this whole relationship. And then you've got all the oil, you've got all the other kinds of resources. Europe and Americas, they may be the places where more easily than any place on earth. You can eat, there's food is never out of seasons. Vegetables and fruits are never out of season because they're plucking them from all over the world all the time. When it's winter someplace and a product normally comes from that place, then the U.S. and Europe are able to get that product from another place because the seasons are not that meaningful to them when they can go any place and take any resource in any year, any month that they want to do this. And this is something that they fight seriously to protect. This is a relationship that they fight to protect. And now so much of this is under severe stress. And you see evidence of this stress all the time. And the U.S. government has perfected a capacity to maintain this relationship, and the Europeans have, and this real instrument that's been designed for this purpose is called the state. And the state is an organization, it's a bureaucracy that has at its disposal organizations of coercion, force. The state is the instrument through which the white ruling class enjoys a monopoly on violence. And it demands a monopoly on violence. It demands that everybody else is disarmed, unarmed, except the imperialist white power that's necessary to control and maintain the existing relationship of poverty, despair, oppression that the majority of us experience all the time. This is why, you know, the U.S. says that Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. This is why the U.S. says that North Korea is a big threat because they're trying to get a nuclear weapon. When the only country in the world has ever used a nuclear weapon against any human being, killing all kinds of civilians, scores of thousands, more than 100,000 people in Japan alone, was the United States. This is why with killers roaming this country, sometimes white people in uniform gunning us down, gunning our children down, with white men who can walk into a church and kill African people, this whole demand that African turn in our guns, this whole emphasis on violence that is perpetrated in African communities by African people, but never violence that's perpetrated against Africans by white power, by the system itself. So this is the state plays a really profoundly important role in maintaining this relationship. But those are just some of the things the state does. We can see the police, we can see the army, we can see the prisons and the court systems, and they are relatively obvious to us. But there is another component of the state that most of us are not familiar with. Or we can say, if not necessarily another component, that's certainly how the state is deployed, that most of us do not understand. And this is something that's called counterinsurgency. And we and our movement needs to be able to protect ourselves against counterinsurgent efforts by the state, by the United States government, by President Obama, who can sign, put his signature on documents that will allow the CIA and other governmental entities to send drones with missiles on them and assassinate human beings in various places around the world, or to send armies into countries whose oil the United States wants to get or maintain control of, or to use media to paint pictures of people in a fashion that they can cause hysteria in certain places in the world that would justify the United States being able to kill, murder, maim people, and keep people oppressed. That this is the state, and this is the counterinsurgency that we are confronted with, and we need to talk about that because counterinsurgency killed Malcolm X, counterinsurgency killed Martin Luther King. You have people on a regular basis having celebrations and ceremonies and commemorations of Martin Luther King. The white man gave us a holiday. that we could talk about how wonderful Martin Luther King was. It's on his birthday. There is nothing that talks about his death day and who killed him or anything like that. They put a stamp now with Malcolm X's picture on it, and Africans feel so good you can go to the post office and get your Malcolm X stamp. But the US government killed Malcolm and gave us a stamp, killed King, gave us a holiday, and they killed these people as part of what we call counterinsurgency. And a counterinsurgency is a really well-perfected program of maintaining the oppression of a people. And insurgency is defined more or less as revolutionary activities that has gained a certain kind of traction that where people can win their freedom and overturn their oppression. So the counterinsurgency is the method that has been developed by oppressors to make sure that that never happens, to defeat, to undermine, to make impossible for insurgency to develop, or if insurgency does develop, to destroy it, so that the people can be maintained in a status of colonial oppression, of some other form of exploitation by the social system that exists. We need to understand this. And we've been victimized by it and constantly are victimized by it on a daily basis and don't know it when we see it. And that's why we need to have this discussion on today. So I wanted to open up saying that because I think it's important. In our fifth Congress that was held in Washington, D.C. In 2010, was it 2010? We passed a resolution, Resolution 16, that was called Combat the U.S. Domestic Counterinsurgency. This is a document that can, the resolution that can be found in the book that was published from the Fifth Congress called One People, One Party, One Destiny. And I want to just go through the resolution. I think everyone should have a copy of this resolution. You should have access to this resolution. Let me just stop momentarily and do we have the ability, I know Tammy is not here, do we have the ability to send that resolution to people who might not have it? If we can. She did send it out. I know it. I just want to make sure whether people have it who's on this call. Anyway, I'm going to move you can. So if there's someone who does not have the this document, this resolution, it was sent out with the notice of today's study. But if there's someone who does not have it, please say so. Otherwise, we can remain muted, and we'll save space in this discussion for us to be able to actually ask questions and make interventions. So what I want to do is go ahead and, this resolution was originally adopted at the Freedom Summer Conference that was held in St. Petersburg, Florida in 1991. So this is a resolution that was passed in 1991. It was introduced to the Fifth Congress as a resolution for adoption by the party, because the Congress, the party had never through a Congress adopted this resolution prior to then. So it reads, whereas we recognize the elevation of the trader sector of the African population as leaders, administrators, and government employees, part of the neo-colonialist counterinsurgency used to deny colonized African people freedom and the resources stolen from us over the past 400 years. And whereas we recognize further that the North American white nationalist left, including that sector of the feminist movement that generally supports neo-colonialism at the expense of the general national liberation struggle, are active collaborators in the counterinsurgency used to deny African people our freedom. And whereas we recognize that the future of African people lies in our ability to build the African Socialist International and work in solidarity with other colonized and oppressed peoples of the world to expose and defeat US and Western imperialism around the world. And whereas we unite with the current understanding that drugs and the war on drugs are a continuing U.S. counterinsurgency war on African people, having their immediate origin in the COINTELPRO program waged against the African liberation movement in the 1960s. And whereas we understand neo-colonialism, military occupation, curfews, martial law, on-the-spot strip searches, well-armed hostile paramilitary forces, special legislation, laws, and attacks on our national democratic rights are all features of the U.S. government counterinsurgency attack on African people. And whereas we understand that the security of our movement against U.S. domestic colonialism depends on our ability to combat the U.S. capitalist colonial state repression and secret political police in defense of the national democratic rights of African and other subject and colonized peoples within the U.S. And whereas this Congress mandates the African People's Socialist Party to initiate efforts as soon as possible to establish contact with revolutionary organizations and individuals all over the world as a first step toward the realization of the goal of an African Socialist International, now therefore be it resolved by the 5th Congress of the African People's Socialist Party held in Washington, D.C. on the dates of July 10th through 14, 2010. Section 1, to combat the counterinsurgency program and its tactics of disinformation, which include rumors, gossip, slanders, lies, and half-truths, by insisting on the highest level of principled political discourse, criticism, and self-criticism between and among all anti-colonial organizations. This high level of open public communications and criticism will serve the needs of all colonized and subject people to objectively compare, understand, and unite with the organizations that represent the best interests of the working classes of African and other subject peoples. And Section 2, to combat the counterinsurgency program and its targeting of African youth for particular harsh terror. We recognize our African youth as the concrete expressions of our people's future and the most vibrant, energetic, and uncompromising sector of our whole people, demanding self-determination and freedom. And Section 3, that we further recognize as traitorous counterinsurgency stooges, the representatives of any organizations that insist on identifying our African youth as criminals, incorrigibles, delinquents, drug kingpins, habitual offenders, gang members or gang leaders, while leaving unstained the character and reputation of the U.S. domestic brutal government that has a history of over 400 years of organizing crime in North America, beginning with the biggest crime of all,
callers are muted and they can unmute themselves.
The enslavement of African people. We demand the national democratic rights of our African youth and entire people to be defended. And Section 4, to combat the counterinsurgency intelligence gathering apparatus by calling on all Africans and subject nationals to participate in non-collaboration campaigns that will resist cooperating with police drug information hotlines, police town watch organizing, police athletic leagues, police explorer scouts, police recruitment in high schools and colleges, street conversations with police supported and protected dope busting and taking back the street rallies and marches and police investigations. And Section 5, that a non-collaborationist stance with the police and its neo-colonial fronts will further draw the line between those of us who are for our people being free and those who will unite with our communities and people's class enemy, the U.S. government. We further encourage all freedom-loving people to join an organization led by principled revolutionary cadre to fulfill the dreams of a safe, liberated, clean, drug-free community. And Section 6, that this resolution will be in full force and effect immediately upon its adoption and approval in the manner provided by the Constitution of the African People's Socialist Party and the rules of procedure of this document. So this is a document that has its origin in the Freedom Summer Conference that was held by our party in St. Petersburg, Florida in 1991, and simply modified so that it could meet the requirements of our Congress that was held in 2010. So in Washington, D.C. So I wanted to go over that, and I want people to have possession of this because I think it should really help to inform our practice in the real world. Now what I want to do is go to a section from the organizational manual of the African People's Socialist Party dealing with the question of security, recognizing that counterinsurgency is something that is constantly at work. And I want to try to do this as expeditiously as possible so that we can have some good discussion around this question. And I do hope that as we move forward, people will make note of the kinds of questions that need to be discussed more fully, and that people will understand as a consequence of this discussion the seriousness of this whole issue of security, counterinsurgency, and the nature of the government and social system that we are contending with, because many people do not know it, and many people do not understand why a government, even that is opposed to certain kinds of resistance struggle, will often support a certain expression of the people's anger at the expense of a genuine revolutionary movement that can overturn the basis of the total relationship that we have with our oppression. So this is on security, and the purpose is to provide party members and organizations a minimum understanding of security and the nature of the social system with which we are struggling for liberation and socialism. Party members and organizations should also learn the urgency of security for our party and the need for each party member to assume responsibility for the security of the party and its members. So this is not a substitute for the security organization of the party. It is something that every party member should understand. Every individual in the party, whatever your relationship to the party, every individual who is a part of our movement and the movement in general should have a basic kind of understanding of the question of security. And I want to say that people who are familiar with how Malcolm X was killed should be aware of the fact that Malcolm himself violated various rules that he had put in place for security on the day that he was killed. He had removed the people from the door who were responsible for doing the kind of searches that usually happen for anything that he is involved in, any kind of movement that his organization was doing. He is the one who perfected the whole process of security that the Nation of Islam uses, and he violated that himself, taking some of the security down or not requiring the same kind of security that he usually requires. And that's why it's important for us to understand the question of security, but it's also important for us to understand why, if we find ourselves with the responsibility of security, then it becomes the responsibility of our security forces to do that, not the person who's being secured. Malcolm shouldn't have had the ability to make that decision. The security apparatus should have been able to make that decision. Because people have subjective responses to things. I have subjective responses to things. Sometimes I don't like, certain aspects of what security means in terms of how it separates me from people. But the reality is that our enemies take advantage of all of that, and our enemies take advantage of my instincts to get close to the people as a means that it would use to harm me and to hurt our movement, etc. So just want to say that among the things that are very clear to us in the African People's Socialist Party and the Uhuru movement is the significance of the state as an instrument of oppression in society. The state, an inherently oppressive apparatus, has the mission of protecting the prevailing social system and its ruling class as a social force. When we say protecting the prevailing social system, what we mean is the state has as its responsibility to protect the relationship that exists, the current relationship that exists between the oppressed and the oppressor. That's what it's there for. It is there to protect this relationship so that this relationship never changes, that the oppressed remain oppressed and the oppressor continues to be the oppressor. Not necessarily individuals who are in the oppressor, because the oppressor, the state will even move against an individual among the oppressors if that individual threatens severely the relationship that exists between the oppressed and the oppressors as a whole. So the state is there for that purpose. The state was born of society's response to being split by class divisions, arising from the ability of one sector of society being able to expropriate value from another exploited sector. The state, represented in the form of police, army, jails, prisons, courts, etc., is necessary to prevent the exploited from rising up to overturn the system responsible for their exploitation. That's what the state is there for. The various arms of the U.S. secret political police, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Central Intelligence Agency, the National Security Agency, etc., are organs of the state that work with other police organizations. Together, they have developed a program to prevent or stifle struggle for liberation. This program is called Counterinsurgency, and it utilizes various forms of psychological, economic, and political intervention, although it ultimately rests on a military capacity. Now, most people are familiar with the FBI, or know of it, or the CIA, or know of it, and some people are familiar with the National Security Agency, the NSA. But believe me, that's just a tiny sector of the whole intelligence apparatus. I'm looking at here this book on the U.S. intelligence community, right? And this is something that was published in 1999. And it just talks about some of the intelligence organizations. It talks a lot about intelligence, but the CIA, the National Security Agency, this is National Intelligence Organization, the CIA, the National Security Agency, the National Reconnaissance Office, the National Imagery and Mapping Agency, and then there is the Defense Department Intelligence Organizations, the Defense Intelligence Agency, the Defense Human Intelligence Service, the Military Service Intelligence Organization, the Army Intelligence Organization, the Navy Intelligence Organization, the Air Force Intelligence Organization, the Marine Corps Intelligence Organization. Then there's Unified Command Intelligence Organization. There is an Atlantic Command. There is a Central Command. There's a European Command, the Pacific Command, Southern Command, U.S. Space Command, U.S. Special Operations Command, U.S. Strategic Command, U.S. Transportation Command. There's a Civilian Intelligence Organization, Department of State Intelligence, Department of Energy Intelligence, Department of Treasury Intelligence, Department of Commerce Intelligence, the Drug Enforcement Administration Intelligence, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Department of Transportation Intelligence, and you go on and on and on and on. Believe me, I've just mentioned just a few of them. But this is not something that you should find intimidating. The fact is that to have so much intelligence entities and organizations is a statement of its own insecurity. So they call it being secure, but it's a statement of its own insecurity. So it has these intelligence organizations every place, and in many ways, even in the 1960s, we were up against a whole array of them. One of the striking things that when Martin Luther King was murdered in Dallas, Texas, the presence of the Naval Intelligence Organization that was involved there has never really been explained. And I said Martin Luther King, but I meant John F. Kennedy. And so these intelligence organizations are, in a lot of different places, and sometimes the government wants you to know they are there. And they want you to know they are there because it paralyzes people. People become fearful and unwilling to do anything to fight for freedom. And that's what the intelligence organization is about anyway, to keep you from fighting for freedom. So if they, by showing you, look, we are here every place, and convincing you that they've won, they make you put yourself in jail. They make you arrest yourself. They make you kill yourself in terms of being politically active. So we're not intimidated by their presence because we've seen them with all of this be defeated an incredibly significant number of times by people and organizations that are prepared to win their freedom and actually take this question of our freedom and liberation on in a scientific manner, as opposed to hoping and wishing and getting through on melanin alone, right? Or assuming that somehow, since the white man is the devil, something to that effect, that we can pray him out of existence. It doesn't work that way. So just wanted to say something about it. And I'm hoping that saying this is not something that will deter somebody or frighten somebody, but I'm hoping that saying this will help to expose the total anti-democratic character, nature of the social system that we're dealing with. It cannot be democratic. When a system is born on slavery and it functions as a consequence of what it steals and takes from people, it has to have all of these kinds of entities to protect that relationship. Nobody will voluntarily see their children die on early ages or go hungry all the time without taking some kind of actions. And so there's an ongoing process to try to keep people from moving against a social system. And the people are so many that they can't have enough intelligence agencies to stop it once the people achieve certain kinds of consciousness and organization, which is the responsibility of the party to take to the people. So because of who we are and what we represent as the advanced detachment or the general staff of the struggles of our people for African liberation, unification, and socialism, the African People's Socialist Party has always been and will always be a target of U.S. counterinsurgency. Because of this fact, the issue of security is of supreme significance for us as an organization and as individual members of our party and our movement. The U.S. government has utilized counterinsurgency programs against our movement for as long as we have existed. The FBI infiltrated the first African into its organization for the sole purpose of infiltrating the Universal Negro Improvement Association, the UNIA, during the first part of the 20th century. In this case, integration was a method of counterinsurgency. I said in this case, but in generally speaking, that's what it's been. So they brought the first FBI agent. They integrated the first Negro into the FBI because they needed somebody to go into Garvey's movement and help to destroy it. They didn't create the FBI. They didn't create a Negro agent to join the NAACP or any other organ. It was the Garvey movement. And they didn't create the FBI to even deal with the Communist Party USA. I mean, they created the FBI. The FBI was to deal with all of them, but the first Negro they brought in there was for the purpose of helping to destroy the Garvey movement. In the 1960s, the FBI became the best-known counterinsurgency agency that was used against our struggle within the U.S. While the CIA and various arms of military intelligence were also deployed against our movement, the FBI's counterinsurgency program, known as Counterintelligence Program or COINTELPRO, became notorious for its brutal, sometimes bloody interventions in our struggle. And for people who are on this call, who are in this study, who are not familiar, you can simply Google COINTELPRO. I mean, the fact is that right now, because it was so exposed during the 1960s, that there's plenty of information on the internet around this. But I want to quote excerpts from the now infamous directive from J. Edgar Hoover, who was the director of the FBI, who presided over the secret political police organization for 40 years. And I want to read this, but what I want to say also is that what has happened is that liberals and other people who want to liquidate what the FBI did for more than 40 years, that this is stuff that he did for more than 40 years, but they want to say it was Hoover. Hoover was just a bad guy. Hoover was somebody with a this was the United States government. This was the secret political police that was responsible, they said, for catching spies, for doing all kinds of stuff. This was that. They don't say Hoover was messed up on any other thing except he was just bad when he was dealing with this so-called counterinsurgency program. This was the federal government. This was the United States government that was doing this to African people. So here's what he says. This is from Hoover, from the director, FBI Counterintelligence Program, Black Nationalist Hate Group, Internal Security. Now, the guy who really developed this for Hoover was somebody who was first used by Richard Milhouse Nixon, who was president of the United States, and sent into the Vietnam, the Vietnam conflict, war of oppression and colonialism that was initiated first by the French and then held up by the United States government. And its purpose, they began to initiate this whole process of bringing drugs out of the United States. They created something called ODALE, O-D-A-L-E. I can't remember what the acronym stands for at the moment. But they were the ones who began this process of bringing opium from what they called at the time the Golden Triangle. Vietnam, where they were making this war against the people of Vietnam. They began to bring opium out of Vietnam, and they created this whole heroin epidemic in this country. And they created, like I said, this organization called ODALE, O-D-A-L-E, which was a precursor of the Drug Enforcement Agency. That's where the Drug Enforcement Agency came from. This guy created it. And then this guy was rewarded by Nixon and was brought, does it go the other way around? He may have created COINTELPRO and then was rewarded by Nixon by going to Vietnam, one way or the other, but he was the one who created the COINTELPRO program for Hoover. And by the way, he himself was killed mysteriously years later in a so-called hunting accident by the son of a guy who was a highway patrolman. So they got rid of him because he became a problem too, because he began disgruntled and talking too much and what have you. And so he was executed in a hunting accident by a person who was a son. Can anybody remember what his name was?
I'm looking it up.
So this is the guy who actually authored this program for the FBI. And it says the purpose of this new counterintelligence endeavor is to expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit, or otherwise neutralize the activities of Black nationalist hate-type organizations and groupings, their leadership, spokesmen, membership, and supporters, and to counter their propensity for violence and civil disorder. This is what the purpose of this program was. Again, it is to expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit, or otherwise neutralize the activities of Black nationalist hate-type organizations and groupings, their leadership, spokesmen, membership, and supporters, and to counter their propensity for violence and civil disorder. The activities of all such groups of intelligence interest to the Bureau must be followed on a continuous basis, so we will be in a position to promptly take advantage of all opportunities for counterintelligence and inspire action in instances where the circumstances warrant. To take advantage of all opportunities for counterintelligence and to inspire action in instances where circumstances warrant. And the guy we're talking about, his name was William Sullivan. Check him out, William Sullivan. The pernicious background of such groups, their duplicity and devious maneuvers must be exposed to public scrutiny where such publicity will have a neutralizing effect. You understand? They say exposed to public scrutiny where such publicity will have a neutralizing effect. That's the only time there's any publicity is supposed to be dealt with around them. Efforts of the various groups to consolidate their forces or to recruit new or youthful adherents must be frustrated. No opportunities should be missed to exploit through counterintelligence techniques the organizational and personal conflicts of the leaderships of the groups, and where possible, an effort should be made to capitalize upon existing conflicts between competing Black nationalist organizations. This is what's happening with us all the time. When an opportunity is apparent to disrupt or neutralize Black nationalist hate-type organizations through the corporation of established local news media contacts or through such contact with sources available to the seat of government, which is the FBI, in every instance, careful attention must be given to the proposal to ensure the targeted group is disrupted, ridiculed, or discredited through the publicity and not merely publicized. Right? You are also cautioned that the nature of this new endeavor is such that under no circumstances should the existence of the program be made known outside the Bureau. And appropriate within office security should be afforded to sensitive questions and sensitive question and what? And techniques considered under the program. No counterintelligence action under this program may be initiated by the field without specific prior Bureau authorization. This counterinsurgency program, that's unquote. This counterinsurgency program resulted in various assassinations that included Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Fred Hampton, and Lawrence Mann, who was a co-founder of our party. Others were victims of FBI-influenced internecine violence between African organizations, while hundreds of others were rounded up for incarceration based on false charges after being set up by provocateurs placed in organizations by the FBI or other U.S. secret political police organizations. And this whole thing about this internecine violence between African organizations, it was very serious. The FBI would write letters claiming to be from one organization and then sent to another organization, threatening them, ridiculing them, saying all kinds of stuff that has actually led to shootouts. They sent us letters that were supposed to have been from the Black Panther Party during our Jomo era. They sent the Black Panther Party letters saying that that was supposed to be from somebody inside Jomo. And that was targeting me, that the African, which is how I was characterized during this era, doesn't support freeing Huey and coming up with et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, trying to exacerbate and create contradictions. And people shot and killed each other and couldn't get along with each other based on that, when a simple phone call might have been able to resolve anything that was going on, or some kind of discussion between groups. That none of that happened. But the other thing is that it warns us about how we talk and how we discuss things, and because we have different serious disagreements with political organizations out there in the world. But those are political disagreements, and we have to deal with them in a political way, and that's something that we should be aware of. Others were victims of FBI. Let's see. These are some of the experiences of our movement that make it necessary, especially during this era of desperate imperialism and crisis, to pay particular attention to the issue of security. In the final analysis, the security of the party, our movement and members, relies on our relationship with the people. the masses of oppressed Africans and our allies. This is why all our work must uphold the notion that the people are the real makers of history, not important individuals or even special equipment or arms. It is important to realize, however, that as an organization, there are things that we should be aware of that can contribute to our security and the security of our membership. But I can't overstate the significance of the role of the people, because there have been times, and I'm speaking now more specifically of the 1960s, and there were times even in the 1990s when this building where I'm speaking from now came under assault by the police. And the people would come and they would tell us, look, this is what's going on. Or they would see some white guy or some strange person, doesn't even have to be white often. Does somebody come looking for us, well, do you know where it's so and so? And people said, figure, well, hell, if you don't know, you ain't supposed to know, right? And we'll send people in circles. The people have a greater sense of insecurity most times than we do as organizers. And there have been times when I've been, people have seen me in a supermarket or someplace, and they ask me, they say, you're out here by yourself? Why don't you have security with you? Right? I mean, people say this. So the thing is that the people, often you have a stronger sense of security, and we have to reinforce that and deepen that and help people know what they're looking for. We were maybe a couple of years ago involved in a situation where one of our members had been arrested not too far from the Uhuru House by the police. And when we went to the scene, and this is deep, like in the colony, working class, poor community, and we went to the scene, the police are all over the place because we were engaging the people about their presence, and this one car came by and was hit by a police car. This white guy driving this car, and the car was hit by a police car. And here we are simply, telling the white man, yeah, you should, make a complaint, etc., because we want to get at the police. And some of the Africans stand in the corner and say, that guy is a spotter. He's the police. He's a spotter. And he's driving through like he's, something else. But the people understand this stuff and have a greater sense of security than we do. So we're going to help the white guy, to file a complaint, because we think that's going to help us if the white guy files a complaint against the police. And the people say, no, this guy is the police, that he just got hit accidentally with some more cops rushing in to deal with us. He's a spotter. He's there to spot what's going on in the community and send the people who are in the regular police cars and uniforms to come and deal with the community. So the people are critical. And they have a better understanding more often than we do of what it is, because in order to deal and to live in the community, people have to learn how to deal with the police. So during the 5th Congress of the party conducted in July 2010, we passed a resolution that was essentially a restatement of a resolution that was passed at a party conference in 1991. I just read that resolution earlier. And we're saying that all members should become familiar with that resolution, as it helps us to understand counterinsurgency, and it puts forward recommendations that offer defense from some of the security threats posed by the U.S. colonial government. You notice that this discussion on security makes an assumption that the government is the enemy and not the friend of African people. And I think that's a distinguishing recognition of us as a party. We don't think that there's a way that the government is going to help us by becoming nicer, or body cameras or anything like that. And I think it's also important, is just as the FBI is an organ of the state, it is an instrument of the government, so is the police. People talk about rogue policemen, rogue cops. But damn, if there's a rogue cop involved, I mean, how can they be rogue when every damn body is doing it? The rogue cop is the one who is not doing it. The rogue cop is the occasional one that might snitch and say, hey, these are what the guys are doing. The rogue cop is the one that the cops shoot because they are informing what it is that they're doing. It's the government that we are contending with. And all of this discussion makes the assumption that the government is an opponent of African people, African freedom, anything like that. If it weren't for the government, we wouldn't have this problem. And I think that's really important for us to understand. So we say that in addition to the leadership offered by the resolution, there are other things that we must understand that are related to the security of our organization and its members. One, always adhere to democratic centralist principles. Democratic centralism is about accountability. One task of the enemy counterinsurgency is to destroy organizational cohesion, to create confusion and division by taking advantage of weaknesses in accountability and organizational cohesion. And that is to say that if there are various principles that the organization is supposed to function by, how better to destroy the organization by neutralizing those principles, undermining those principles that keep us together and keep us on track. And if the government can send people into our organizations even, with the task of destroying the coherence and cohesion of the organization, then they can neutralize the organization. That's a counterinsurgency method. But democratic centralism demands that we require accountability. One task that they've used in the past is that, and they use today, is that you have an organization, there's something that you have to do that's profoundly important. And the organization agrees to take this on. There are tasks that have to be taken on by different elements in the organization. And then what they would do is have a provocateur that's in the organization who will take the most important job that has to be done for the security or for the success of the mission, that take and volunteer to take the most important job that for the success of the mission, and then not do it. And that guarantees that the mission will fail. And if you have an organization filled with liberals where there is no democratic centralism being practiced, then you overlook that and say, oh, well, that's old Junebug, he never does anything anyway. You just pass that by. And what is happening is the organizational coherence is constantly being eroded. The organization is taken off of its mission without anybody firing a single shot. So this is the kind of thing that happens. And that's why we practice democratic centralism. That's why we practice accountability, so that we can guarantee that the mission is always first, and that everybody in the organization is responsible for the success of the mission, so that anybody who tries to corrupt the mission stands out as somebody who's working against the party and against the revolution. 2, always assume that your communications are being monitored, whether phone, postal, electronic. This means that whatever you say using any medium is subject to inspection and can and will be used against you or the party. There's no conversation that you're having using any of these mediums that you cannot assume is not being monitored, listened to by the government in some form or another. And so one has to be careful of what one says using these. And, the common ordinary street dealer pushing dope in the community, they know that. Only people who don't know that are smart people who joined the revolution. And we're the only ones who understand that. 3, never allow yourself to be drawn into any discussion about adventurous acts that are not on the official agenda of the party or the movement. Don't be drawn into any discussions about, we went to Russia. And when we went to Russia, before we went to Russia, I said, somebody is going to come up to you and invite you and says to say, let's take this thing on that is extremely, and sure enough, we're in a meeting and somebody comes up and say, hey, well, there's a way you can make a few dollars and you can go and fight in this war over here and you can learn how to do such and such a thing. I mean, it happened. And I'd already said it, didn't I say that? This is going to happen, right? And so often the government will send agents into our organization whose sole purpose is to engage the organization or individuals in discussions that can be interpreted as conspiratorially illegal and thereby justify arrest or an armed assault. 4, avoid behavior that is likely to result in inadvertent contact with the police or other arms of the state. This includes speeding, loud house parties, personal altercations, illegal drug use, etc. Not only does contact allow for the possibility of arrest and its attendant problems, but many Africans die at the hands of the police under such circumstances, and most of these Africans are not even engaged in struggle to overthrow our oppression. So you don't voluntarily have contact with these guys. If you want to have contact with the police that could lead to an arrest or something, it's planned. It's what we want to do, not because of some inadvertent, because we're doing silly stuff that draws attention to us, that disrupts us, because, you know, we got all this work to do, and now we got to spend all this time getting you out of jail. You can't drive because you were speeding, and all this other kind of stuff that happens, and it disrupts everything that we're trying to do. 5, never speak for the party or the movement with the media or police, etc., without the express permission of leadership. When contacted by the media, always refer them to the appropriate leader for comment. Keep your mouth shut. Never discuss party business with any non-party person without the express permission of the leadership to do so. Always report suspicious persons and/or incidents to appropriate leadership. This would include individuals whose inquiries about the party business go beyond what could be reasonably considered curiosity or legitimate interest in the party or the movement. 8, never speak ill of any party member with anyone. This is a special taboo that, when broken, exposes the party as undisciplined and not united, suggesting the possibilities to get information by exploiting differences among us. 9, never talk to the FBI or any police organization about the party, our movement and members, or your involvement. While it is illegal to lie to the FBI and other federal agents, you don't have to and should never tell them anything. Never lie and never talk. If contacted, you should ask whether you are under arrest, and if not, you should refuse to talk to them. Ask them to leave or leave yourself. And if you are not in your own home, if you are under arrest, you should still not talk, but ask to call a lawyer. This is really important, because there are 2 things that I want to say about that. 1, if you lie to them, you've committed a federal crime. If they knock on your door and say, "Are you Raymond Turner?" and you say, "Nope," and you are Raymond Turner, you've lied to a Fed, you can go to jail. There's no thing that you can just tell them innocent lies. They can arrest you for lying to a federal agent. The other thing that happens is that they will come and talk to you, and you want to be clever. You know, why are you in this movement? You know you can't win. Oh, yes, we can, blah, blah, blah. And you just start talking to them and stuff like that. Don't talk to them. Because the thing is, you want to convince them of the justness of your struggle. They don't give a damn about justice. If they did, they would be nurses instead of FBI agents or something like that. You know, they are there for the purpose of destroying your movement. So when you begin to have discussions with them, they are trained to be able to pick up all kinds of stuff from your discussion. They know something about your personality. They know something about the organization. When they know about your personality, they know about the organization. If you're in the organization and you talking like this, they know something about the organization. There's some weakness of the organization that they can take advantage of, or they know about your personality and other kinds of things. They know it when you're lying. I mean, so the point is, don't talk to them. We know you're smarter than they are. You don't have to prove it to them. Don't talk to them, etc. 10, never talk to the police without a lawyer present. Sometimes people make the mistake of thinking they will just explain things to the police and that the police will go away after learning that they are innocent. Hundreds and perhaps thousands of people languish in jail because they talk to the police, and their words, interpreted by their enemies and framed to meet the requirements of colonial law, come back to haunt them in court. Always maintain a reasonably organized home and work site. It is important for your home and work site to be neat enough to discern whether something is missing or whether something has been put there without your permission. I mean, somebody come into your house in the middle of the night and they do this. We retrieve boxes and boxes of documents from the FBI, Freedom of Information Act. I'm talking about boxes, large cartons of stuff. And in the boxes of stuff from the FBI were newspaper clippings. I used to be a newspaper clipping hound, clipping all kinds of articles and stuff, and I'd write the paper it came from, the date it was in, etc. And there were photos in the box. There were photos of newspaper clipping with my handwriting on them that they had to come into the office and photograph when nobody was in the office and what have you. So the thing is that you want to have a reasonably organized home or work site, so that when you come into your house, you should be able to know whether something is out of place. You know, you should be able to know, hi, I didn't put that there. How did it get there? That kind of thing. 12, always keep contact information secure. This includes your address book, petitions, and contact information given by people at events or on other occasions. Because when people give us that information, they have entrusted us with a lot. And the fact is that the FBI and other agencies will mess with all of the people on those contact lists sometimes, or any of them, to try to undermine us. 13, always protect the leadership of our party and our movement. Obviously, this includes protection from physical harm, but it also means from gossip, slander, and various other attempts at assault. Always do that. I mean, because the old maxim is cut off the head, destroy the body, is something that they believe in. That's why they assassinate particular leaders and individuals. They believe very seriously in that. So everybody in the world should make an assumption that if I say something wrong about Omali Yeshitela, if I come gossip, that my head's going to be bitten off, cut off, some bad is going to happen. So they should never even consider that. They should break out in nervous hives and things like that at the thought of insulting or assaulting any of our leaders. And there shouldn't be a second thought about that from the people in our party. 14, keep your home and property secure. This includes the utilization of alarm systems where possible, notwithstanding their limitations. Sometimes security serves as a delaying tactic that allows preparation, or as a warning system that allows others to know of your plight. So I have an alarm system, not because I think that the FBI or the police can't break through that alarm system, and I have certain locks on my house, not because I don't think they can break through the locks, but because they serve at least as delaying tactics, so that I get perhaps some knowledge that somebody is trying to penetrate, and gives me an opportunity to do something, perhaps to protect myself, protect my family, etc. So you have alarm systems up, not because you, and the other thing about it is because there are, right now, at this time, there are certain kinds of constitutional prohibitions against them moving in a certain way. And so you want to try to use this law against them in the event they do come in, the event they do something. I keep my cars locked so that they have to illegally break into the car to get something. And if they break into the car and get something, and I can prove it, and if I have to go to court, and under these circumstances as they exist today, then I can have it thrown out because they got it illegally. Those are the kinds of things, not because I believe in the court system or because I believe locking my car is going to keep them from getting in. 15, develop solid relations with neighbors that make it less likely for agents to poison opinions about you and to surreptitiously exist in your community. And that's really important. I mean, I work at this all the time, and you should work at it too. We are revolutionary politicians. We are revolutionary organizations and members of an organization. And some of us, have the ability to make enemies every damn where we go by our attitude, by how we talk to people, how we address people, and things like that. And what we are involved in all the time is I'm always establishing relationships. I mean, with the people in the supermarket, with the people in the restaurant, et cetera. I'm constantly establishing relationships. It doesn't mean that these are people who won't lie on me or betray me, but it does mean that they're less likely to do it to me than they are to somebody who's just a pain in the ass all the time to meet them. Being right is not always the most important thing in the world. Winning is the most important thing in the world, and we are on a constant mission to win people to our side, to our stance, etc. Number 16, be upstanding in your dealings with everyone, including political opponents. This will undermine the ability of agents to penetrate your security defense by using personal differences you might have with anyone. Be upstanding in your dealings with everybody, including political opponents. This doesn't mean embracing people and all of that, but it does mean that nobody can accuse the African People's Socialist Party of ever having betrayed a trust, ever having told a lie, of ever having manufactured some kind of contradiction that is a problem. They might say that we are secretly combining, but we don't do that. We don't gossip about people. We don't raise up certain kinds of stuff that can function as slander, that can be used to hurt our movement. Because once you entertain that kind of thing, it's something that will permeate the entire movement, and people will be doing the same thing that you're doing, and it's an insecure, unsafe situation. We want to create different kinds of standards about how people can function inside this revolutionary movement and still call themselves members of the movement. This is one of the reasons why we attack with a ferocity this whole thing of name calling, this whole faggot bashing, and all this other kind of stuff that we see coming from Negroes who call themselves as a part of our movement. We want to expose them not as part of our movement, but as part of the government, the agent, the enemy, and stuff like that. We have a whole different standards, and we want to hold everybody up to the best kinds of standards so that this stuff will be seen as impermissible in the revolutionary movement. That's bourgeois. That's the white ruling class. That's the enemy that does that kind of stuff. We're trying to build a whole different kind of society where people can be genuinely free. 17, always live up to the philosophy and principles of the party. This is one of the most important things. It helps to keep us moving in a principled way all the time. And it builds a political shield because the people will always recognize that any attack against you or our party is an attack on the principles and philosophy that are guiding our struggle for liberation. So this should also help us. I'm not talking about building liberal relationships with anybody. I'm not saying that pretend that you are the new Black Panthers or the AAPRP or anything like that. I'm saying how we deal on a principled way, even as we struggle with forces, that we struggle with them around principle, philosophical, political differences that we have, as opposed to other kind of silliness that undermine the whole nature of the debate that we should be having with them. 18. Never recruit obviously unstable people into the party or the movement. Sometimes people who have mental problems are attracted to our movement because they assume we are social outcasts, as they consider themselves to be. Often liberals in our work bring them into the work as a form of social work. However, mentally unstable people are often prime instruments of secret police actions against our movement. Often they can be manipulated to commit horrible offenses against the movement without fully understanding that they are being manipulated, against, leaving the hands of the state invisible to detection. You understand what I'm saying? So how easy it is, because, well, we know he kind of crazy, but we like crazy people, and we gotta free the crazy people too. And so give them a front seat up there, so when the chairman can speak to the crazy people also, right? And no. If we know that we have, and we see this, these are people who the enemy will use. They will victimize their mental health and things like that to turn them against the revolution. And then we will never be able to trace who did it, because the people don't know who did it. The ones who committed the act, they think they did it because the government put them in motion, pulling the right kind of strings, dealing with their mental problems. 19, never speak disparagingly of other organizations and leaders. Any criticism of any organization must be a political criticism based on the principles of African internationalism. Even then, such criticisms must be not be made lightly, independent of the political implications of the criticism and the mission of the party. So I wanted to say those things. There's a lot more that can be said. People should look at this document, read it, study it, and there are other things that you can read and learn about the issue of security and counterinsurgency that you must do. So what I want to do now is open it up for discussion. I think we've left space here, left room to have political discussion, and I'm assuming that we've touched on things that a lot of people on this call will want to address. Uhuru. So somebody just came unmuted, I think.
Yes,
somebody just unmuted. Go ahead.
All callers are unmuted.
Uhuru. Yes.
Yeah, I just want to make a remark on the portion where you talked about they will intentionally let you know that they are there for the sole purpose of you arresting yourself, making yourself unavailable, to scare yourself into not struggling. I think this is long years ago that two incidents we can surely say that that's what they did. One incident was when they sent 15 FBI agents, 15 to 20, to a store that we were affiliated with just to remove one poster, See, what they did was, everybody who saw all the police running that bookstore to arrest a sister for posting up an anti-bicentennial thing, obviously that was to, make people afraid of the struggle. Another thing was, I think it was you and myself walking down Auburn Avenue.
Atlanta.
The secret police just pulled us over, ID, and didn't say another word. Just kept on going. They wanted us to know that they were there, therefore paralyzed what we were doing. But I think that we had pretty much just understanding that we didn't know what we know now, but we saw what it was. So I'd just like you to comment on that.
Well, that K-Thing, and also, I mean, you didn't mention how during the Desert Woods struggle, when we were going into, I think it was Plains, Georgia, or Hawkinsville, and where the trial was being held, and everybody who came to try to defend that sister was stopped by the highway patrol on the street coming in, and how the whole community had been put under arrest. I mean, everybody in the African community in I think it was Hawkinsville, had been terrorized and told that if they came out, bad things were going to happen to them. And this is in a place where the white people still had their own jails, private jails, that they arrested black people on their own and did horrible things to. So, the presence and that's one of the reasons African Mother's Day, by the way, is important to us, because the fear of arrest, the fear of standing up for freedom, the fear that you might get killed, and all of these things is just one of the most powerful weapons that the oppressor has in its arsenal. And so it will let you know often that we're watching you, so that you'll put yourself in jail. It'll let you know that it has this propensity for violence and murder and mayhem. So in order to avoid that, you will suffer, another century of oppression. So, I mean, that's just the real thing. And in the old days, there was a situation where we had these landline phones. Well, even after landline phones, even after the FBI and the federal government had achieved an ability to listen to any discussion that you had without you knowing it, they would let you know it. You could hear the click on the phone and stuff like that all the time. They would let you know that they are there. And again, the whole thing was to make you so think that they're so all-knowing, all-seeing that you can't do anything and be successful. But the power of the people is something that they have never been able to defeat. And the thing is that the only reason that they can even make us special targets is because we are special. And the reason we are special is because up to now we haven't succeeded in making the politic of the philosophy of the land of the party, the politic philosophy in the land of masses of people. And masses of people adopt the politic in the land, and then it's everybody that they got to watch, as opposed to 6 people who are in this city or something to that effect. Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Yes.
Uhuru, Chairman, this is Herdosha.
Yes, come in.
And I just really, really appreciate this piece, and this is why I had no other option but to join the party. And this is why I know that African Internationalist is the only solution for freedom. When I was in Ferguson, all the scare tactics and everything that was going on, I've seen all these things happen, and it even happened to myself when party members was at my house where I had got some KKK on my door, and even times where I came home and I know that they wanted me to know. They didn't just come in my house. They left things for me to find, for me to know that somebody been in my house. But I'm still here because I had the party, that they wasn't just touching Herdosha, that I had a party to deepen for me to understand. I was scared, but the party explained what was happening. And I went out into the community on my block and made friends with my neighbors.
Yeah.
To know them, for them to know me. And that was my protection in the people.
Yeah.
And so I just really appreciate this piece. This is real. You know what I'm saying? This is not some hookah buka. This is like science to really understand, for us to safeguard the party. And so this is something that I think that we constantly should, read and know. And I just really, really appreciate this. Even in Ferguson, we see these different people choosing sides. We see who they are politically. And we know who the police are. We can't just, have subjective relationships and not know. It's a way that you can deal with them politically and know who they are and deal with them accordingly. But you can't try to act like they're not who they are. If they talk to the police, they walk with the police, they the police, they the state. So I just really appreciate this piece. I truly do. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Thank you so much for coming. Yeah. Anybody else want to discuss this question?
Chairman
Uhuru.
and comrades, Uhuru, this is Mensa.
Yes, Mensa.
So I just want to piggyback off of what Comrade Herdosha was saying. I really think, the resolution itself is one major piece, but the secondary piece is so very pivotal to our movement, to the party, and it is like we really need to internalize this, right? Like not just to overstand it, but internalize it and follow it. I think the centralization, the democratic centralization is key, right? Like taking accountability and following through with what you are told to do. Do what you are told, and what you are not told, do not do. Very essential. I had some other little comments here, and I'm not going to take too much of the time, but I was thinking about the gerrymandering and the redistricting of areas, the localized laws to control the use of self-defense, the demonization of sectors of the population, and the use of the media to propagandize fear-mongering to justify the creation and the sustaining of laws based upon this, the militarization of local police forces, i.e. the war on drugs, and the use of certain acts to continue to strip resources out of the community, and the consistent pipeline of money that is flooded into those forces vis-a-vis the federal government to suppress the masses. Also, looking at the Red Scare, and if you look at even McCarthyism, right, and you look at those tactics, like this is nothing new. This is something that has just been recreated over and over and over again. And so the thing is that we follow our basics and we do exactly what the party tells us to do in the manner that the party tells us to do it. And we follow our basics and we we understand that we have the support of the system that we create, then we'll be good. I also saw that there was a very key word that this guy was using. He didn't say disobedience, he said disorder, civil disorder. And we just need to be really clear on the difference between the disobedience and disorder. And I think maybe Sadie will maybe speak more to that, but I'm just being really clear on disobedience versus disorder. Also, we know about the Black Panther Party versus us, Ron Taranga, and that movement and how that played out, which was, anyway. And then the introduction of the external contradiction coming from infiltration and coming from the outside to, like perpetuate COINTELPRO and the vicious divisiveness. And the final thing is we are the vanguard of the people and we are from the people. So we realize that we come from that. We are the vanguard. We are the front line. However, we are always of the people, and we need to keep that in mind. So I appreciate your time, comrades and Chairman Uhuru.
Uhuru, thank you so much. Listen, this is, I want to just mention a couple of things really quickly that's important. One is that we constantly hear of this thing called the Willie Lynch syndrome. And that is a petty bourgeois BS. The whole notion that a white man in 1700 and something can come from the Caribbean to instruct the slave owners about how to control Africans for 300 years by pitting the black against the light skin, against the dark skin, the young against there's a whole bunch of simple-minded stuff. It's simple-minded for a number of reasons, because one thing is that it uses language that some of the language didn't even exist during in the 1700s. It's words that didn't even exist during that time. But the other thing about it is that if that was the case, then our communities would not be filled with cops all the time. They wouldn't have to have all these police all the time. It is the state that is responsible for our condition. It is the government, it is the police, it is all this military armament that they put, it is the listening devices, it's the drone. All of that stuff is what they use to keep us oppressed. And whether, the thing about light skin, dark skin, that stuff phenomenon happened, but it happens on the colonized people. So that even in China and Vietnam, where people where the whole notions of beauty and whiteness and reign supreme, Chinese and Vietnamese go to have their eyes rounded so they can look like white people. Mexicans go Clairol, make all kind of money off Mexicans who want to look more white by having blonde hair and all of this kind of stuff. That's just a consequence of colonialism. And colonialism is enforced and reinforced by the power of the gun. It's the gun, it's the state that I think that's important, and it's counterinsurgency. And sometimes counterinsurgency will have you believing that a goddamn letter written by a white man or a message given by a white man in 1700 is responsible for the contradictions in your community and not the damn police who created the letter in the first place, right? So I wanted to say that. Secondly, I want to say that media, there's six corporations that control at least 90% of what you see here through media, through newspapers, through television, through most of the other mediums of media. And these are corporations. These are corporations that benefit from the existing social system. When we talk about the ruling class and the role of the state to protect the existing social system, we're talking about the corporations that include the media being a part of that, and they play an important role. And we've seen what the media will do. I mean, the media is what helped to paint black people even during slavery as savages and stuff like that. And they read the books that said that our brains were too small to be civilized like white people are civilized. They are the ones who create the image of black people that everybody believes to be who we are. When they read about us in China, when they read about us, and when we read about ourselves, it's the media who's telling us who we are and that sometimes inform us. So I think it's really important. The media, the US government wants to invade or murder people in Syria, it's the media that helps to create this idea that a whole bunch of people are against the Syrian regime. We got to go in and rescue all these poor people in Syria from this harsh Assad regime and send guns and murder and mayhem. But the same media never reports in a meaningful way about the police killing us, about the institutionalized joints that they have in Chicago, where African people every day, even up to now, are being tortured, forced confessions and everything like that. So the media play an important role in this South. Welfare, even welfare that's supposed to be for Africans, functions as counterinsurgency that makes you dependent. And also requires that you can't have a man in the house, you know, for your children and for your own support. And you have a situation where the fundamental aspects of counterinsurgency is resource and population control. To control the population, to control the resources that come into the population. So you want to know why there are 1 million Africans in prison today? You want to know why 1 out of every 8 human beings on earth in prison is an African in this country? Population control and resource control. Your community is always starving. They will import a sector into your community to make money, to open up stores and shops and things like that, while denying Africans the ability to have a shop in our own community, to be able to hire ourselves and things like to that extent. So that's something that should really be understood. I'm going to just say one other thing related to this discussion we're having, that there are 3 main ways in the past that the intelligence organizations have affected our movement. And this is not absolutely true today because they have become so much more efficient in terms of what do you call it? The electronic listening and surveillance, etc. But the 3 main things have been: 1, agents. These are agents. These are people who are on the payroll, who have been trained, who work for the FBI, the CIA, one of the other, or even the local police intelligence. Mute if you're not talking, please. If you're not talking, Uhudu, can you hear? Can you hear? Okay, they've lost us. They can't hear. They can't hear us. Come on. Unmute.
Just muted a second.
Do it again, she said.
Unmuted.
Can you hear now? Can you hear us now?
Yeah.
Can you hear us? Okay. Okay. So this is what I want to say. They've become much more sophisticated.
*6, please mute so we can hear Chairman Uhuru.
They've become so much more sophisticated now that they use a lot of electronic stuff. But the 3 main ways that they've used in the past are: 1, the agents. These are people who have been trained. They've gone to school in these intelligence organizations, FBI, even your local police organization has an intelligence arm that's associated with it, CIA, all of these. These are people who they will send also into our organization. Of course, they will spy on us from the outside, but they would join our organizations. Then there are informants, who are people who will work for one of these intelligence organizations, who they will get to join. And these are people who are like mercenaries. They will be paid to do certain things. Sometimes these are people who have arrest sheets, and they want to. The police will give them breaks if they join the organization and become snitches and things like that. And then there are provocateurs who may be, and sometimes informants may be agents, and sometimes provocateurs may be agents, and may also just be people who've been busted and want to get a break from the government. And the government will use provocateurs to come into the organization, to do stuff in the organization that will undermine the organization before masses of people, so that the people be turned off by the revolution. Or the provocateur will come in and say, look, why don't we go and blow up that building over there? And that's really going to do something to the white man. And get a group of people maybe to go on a mission like that. And then they will create some kind of act that would, or try to create the act, and that would undermine our image and the assumptions of the people about who we are, and set the whole organization up for attack. These are some of the methods that get used. And there are discussions that we can have further down the road about how to identify and deal with this kind of stuff, but this is common. These are common tactics that's used by the government. And I'm saying all of this because some of us in this movement are relatively innocent. And we just assume that everybody say they with us, they with us. Everybody say they like us, they like us. Everybody say such and such a thing. It's not true. It's not true of everybody. And my assumption here is that we should not be in a mode to turn everybody off and think everybody is the police. But
it dropped again.
okay, okay.
I was gonna say, I think we dropped again also.
Yeah. Yeah,
Muted. Unmuted.
Can you hear now? Can you hear us now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I don't know. We're gonna have to. I don't know. We have to resolve this contradiction. I've said as much as I was going to say on this stuff. So the other people want to speak, and I see that Comrade Gaida, you had something.
Yeah, I just want to really, really appreciate this study because I think this is the period right now for this study. This is to pre-arm us because I just know that it was the party, it was the chairman who defined counterinsurgency. And that's, in fact, why NPDUM was built, to defeat the counterinsurgency war that's been waged against the African community. And before that, counterinsurgency wasn't applied to us. It was something that we saw the government waging in wars in countries, outside of America and stuff. And then once the chairman began to define what happened to the Panthers as a counterinsurgency war against the African community, and it just really clarified a lot for us. And so I think this is a period where we really have to be on our guard because as the crisis deepened, the counterinsurgency against us will deepen. And I just wanted the chairman to speak about a little bit about the thing that happened in Miami where the entrapment of these young men, it was a part of a counterinsurgency war. But, we have a lot of young people in the movement. We're enthusiastic people, we want to, we don't want to talk about civil rights and all that. We want Black power. We want to fight. And then people, use that. It's easy for people to come up on us and use that to make suggestions to us and for us to get entrapped. So I think entrapment is one thing that we really have to look, and guard against. And another thing is how we carry ourselves and carry the affairs of the party. Sometimes we get careless. We got papers in our car, important papers we walk with, we leave our notebooks and that kind of thing. And we have to be careful against all of that because this is really, really critical, and this is a critical period and we cannot get bogged down in trying to free somebody or take an off point because the counterinsurgency will do just that. So I just really want to appreciate this.
Yeah, I think that Comrade Gaida, said it all. They went to Ferguson and set up some young Africans. 3 people now from the new Black Panther Party. They imprisoned. The FBI comes in and asks them to commit a crime. People never thought about committing a crime. The FBI comes in and say, we'll submit a crime. We'll buy the equipment for you to submit the crime. We'll show you where the crime should be committed. And then they put people in jail for saying, okay, we'll do it. Mm-hmm. And they don't come in as the FBI. They come in as revolutionaries and all this other kind of stuff to win people to do stuff like that. Anybody else?
Let me make this quick comment. And that is on the whole thing of discrediting our leadership, and I think people should be aware that sooner or later they're going to seriously attack you. Mm-hmm. And I'm raising this question because they got this new movie on the Black Panther Party, and what the movie is pretty much an assassination of the leadership of European News. And you said something earlier about them never showing us in a positive light. And everybody I talked to in the community who saw that movie last week, they remember one thing. You had a penthouse on Lake Mary, and if you go up, you might not come down. That was the essence. I think the intelligence community did that work before that movie came out to the public. So my point is that our cadre, our movement has to be diligent on character assassination of our leadership.
I think we have to assume the government made that movie, especially during a time where the Panthers would be something that somebody's looking for as a representative of the struggles that have to be made. And because what the movie, if it were genuinely about the Black Panther Party, what the movement would have been about is the horrors and oppression of African people in this country, and the Panthers as an expression in opposition to that. Instead, the movie comes out to something to demonize the one who founded the Black Panther Party and who led the most important kind of resistance of that period that created what is the revolutionary center in this country, despite whatever you may have thought of Huey P. Newton as an individual, or the fact is that Huey P. Newton was arrested at least twice a year for 22 years in a row. So if he went off haywire and did other backward stuff, it's through more than 20 years of being arrested, harassed for leading a revolutionary movement, and then surviving the defeat of the revolution and in complete isolation from any kind of revolutionary support, et cetera, et cetera. So I have to assume that the federal government made that movie, knowing that people were looking for, the Panthers was the last glaring example of resistance, and people want to say that if you got a leader, this is what that leader would do. Uhuru. Somebody else was about to say something. Yes, go ahead, Carmen.
This is unique.
Yes.
I also really appreciate this this lesson on security, and I just wanted to add some things, because when we were at the Black History Festival yesterday, one thing that was very glaring was the large police presence. When we pulled up to the event, the event was roped off with crime scene tape. So this is what we pulled up to. The police were there before even most of the vendors were there. And the police presence only grew as we were there. And I think that definitely played a role in our ability to be effective. I think people would have been more receptive to our message, but they were kind of scared because the police were there, you know, deep. And so it's, you know, as many people see Black Power and they want to come over to our table, but right to the left and to the right and front behind you is all these police. So
it's white power.
You know, yeah, you know, it was a very interesting atmosphere. But I just wanted to mention about digital, you know, living in this digital age, and when we're talking about securing contacts and stuff like that, most of us have the majority of our contacts in our phones and our tablets and some type of device that can be easily accessible by any government organization. And I think it's important for us to, number one, memorize numbers of important people. You know, people don't know numbers by heart anymore. And I think that's important. Have that each, like for Impedum, for here at HQ, and every unit and organization have emergency plans and emergency drills. You know, where if we get separated, where do we go? Who do we call? You know, who is that person that you know, is going to be standing by waiting for everyone, and where is that place that we all meet? And making sure that everyone knows what that plan is and that it's regularly tested to make sure that it works properly, so that you're not in the middle of a you know, Ferguson-sized demonstration and something happens and you can't get a hold of anyone. Being prepared to collect burner phones, disposable phones that can be activated and thrown away as needed, so that we're not dependent on these digital devices that we may have to chuck at any time. If you see, I know a lot of payphones have been phased out, but there are still some stores in some areas that have payphones, knowing where they are, if they're still in service, so that can be used as a point of communication. Getting a lockbox, a locked filing cabinet for important papers. And I'm even looking into finding a journal that, like a journal that can be locked or be secured in some way, and making sure that my device is locked as well. So again, it's a delaying tactic that if I do lose my device, at least they don't have free access to everything in it. And then lastly, social media, you know, just making sure that we know what we can say and share on social media and what not to say or not to share.
Thank you so much. That's really important information. I want to say something. First of all, I just really want to express appreciation, and this is something that people should really incorporate into our understanding and even our training. And we'll have more opportunities to talk more about that. But that was splendid. I want to say something about, we talked about who made the Panther movement. I'm sure the government did that. But the other thing is the government sponsored the Black History event that you're talking about, that you went to at the supermarket. The government, it was a government-sponsored Black History thing, just like we engaged with a government-sponsored mural project that they want to define who we are. A government-sponsored project to talk about the history that that the Jewish, what do you call that, the Holocaust Museum was putting on. So the government is actively involved in sponsoring events and various kinds of actions that would define reality for us and define struggle and blackness for us. I mean, the government wasn't putting on Black History Month stuff, you know, a couple of years ago. They weren't doing that. They're doing it now because of the resistance and because Africans are looking for that. But the thing is that's so interesting, and they're so obvious that not only were you having some problems there, but a whole bunch of people didn't go there precisely because all those police were there. Believe me when I tell you that the huge sector of the African population don't show up if the police are there. Because the police, so many of us are wanted for something. We got warrants, we got papers, we got all kinds of stuff when we don't show up. And people just, when the police have wanted to keep people from coming to events that we've done, we organized a whole market festival here in the city of St. Petersburg, where Africans would come in and they could set up vending, and it functioned as an incubator. People can start businesses there, and even though the city was supposed to be helping to make this thing happen, the way they made sure people didn't come is they had police all over the place. They had the police there. Nobody coming to the place where the police are. So that's something I think, so it even works against them at the point where they think they can sponsor something, and just because they sponsor it, the definition that they impose upon the people will automatically be accepted. Uhuru, anybody else?
This is Sophie.
Yes, Pete. Foots, go ahead. Go ahead, Foots.
When it comes to what can be said and not said or done on air, is there's something I can get to monitor what information we give out accident on purpose?
On the radio show, I mean, I cannot think of anything that we are doing that would be on the radio that would be prohibitive. What you should not do is allow anybody to participate in discussions about some kind of obviously illegal act or something like that that's going to be committed, or that would even assume that we are involved in something like that. I mean, we would shut that down right away. We wouldn't have that discussion at all, and wouldn't allow anybody else to draw us into that kind of discussion. Any discussion that makes the assumption that somehow Black people are the problem, or the revolution or the movement is a criminal organization or something wrong with that, we would squash that right away. But I cannot think of there's not going to be anything that we would have on the radio that's going to be talking about secrets, that's going to be violating any of the laws. We would do everything we can to protect our institutions, and we would also protect our institutions from the colonial law. For example, right now, we're in a desperate kind of situation, critical crisis mode situation, to establish our own Black Power 96 radio station that would help to inform and the community, et cetera, about our reality, and that would help to turn the community hopefully into a bastion of counterinsurgency activity. And I cannot imagine any circumstances that we would have discussions or anything that could damage that radio. We would try to protect us from FCC attacks, because we know how important having that radio is. So, that's about as good as I can do right now. But Life was about to say something too. Go ahead, Comrade Uhuru. quickly, please.
Yeah, hello, Chairman.
Yes.
Uhuru. Cut my damn. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Thought I cut myself off. I really want to appreciate this discussion. It's very important that we are mindful of security. I appreciate the fact that example you pointed out about Malcolm and the breakdown there, and how important it is for security forces to have a certain kind of discipline and commitment that supersedes the personal sentiments of the person being secured. That cannot be overstated. So I really appreciate that. I would want to say too that when you mentioned it should be assumed, there are 3 points I want to make. One, when you said it should be assumed that all communications are being listened to, that is a good assumption. There's this thing called CALEA, CALEA, Communications Assistance for Law Enforcement Agencies, which offers and allows, or I think even mandates, that any kind of communication entity make it easy for any law enforcement agency or agent to tap in. So whether it's you discussed the several kind of mediums, but it's not it's not a false assumption or overly cautious assumption. It's a real deal kind of thing. And I also wanted to say that I appreciate the idea that we have to be accountable for our own personal security. You set a great example of that, by the way you stay healthy, and make sure that you're in good condition to take on, struggles that may come. And I think, those are very important things that sometimes are understated. And so I appreciate you raising them in this particular discussion, and I'm looking forward to participating in discussions where we can talk more about it.
Uhuru.
Comrades, this is Sadia. I just wanted to also really celebrate and lift up this study session. I think like President Herdoza said, we're really demystifying everything around security. I really appreciate point 9 with regard to engaging with these elements. Point 11 with regard to watching out for our stuff. Point 19 around always keeping our critiques political. And I think those particular elements in particular for me, it just continues to maintain what we're doing as a party. We stay elevated. We stay elevated in our thought and our thinking as well as on the ground with the people. And I just feel like everything that was listed in security this morning really keeps us on both those points. We just are maintaining such a high level of sophistication and thought and intention indeed, and I feel like that's even laid out in the points here for security. The last thing I want to say that really struck me from the reading in particular is the line under section 2, and I just have to read it out loud because it's just such an amazing line. We recognize that our African youth as a concrete expression of the people's future and most vibrant, energetic, and uncompromising sector of our whole people, demanding self-determination and freedom. For me, at any given time, young people are always the most talented, smart, on point, future-thinking people in the room. And I think to know that the party has a document from 1991 that states that points to our young folks as innovators, as talent. I just think that, again, that just goes back to how the party stays on the move, stays relevant. There's nothing that we have that doesn't keep the people moving forward and isn't for the people. So I didn't have a question this morning. I just really had to come in with that comment and just say that I appreciate it. So
Uhuru, thank you so much. And I really appreciate it, comrades. We've reached the end of the study. I know there's much more discussion that could be had. It's one of those kinds of the studies that gives people an opportunity to really deal with concrete kinds of issues. And this is one that's pressing, and we'll be talking about it more and more. We'll have other kinds of studies that will include some of the kind of thing that Comrade Unique was offering up in terms of how we actually protect the movement and more things like that. I want to say that I'm expecting, Comrade Day, when does the Spear go to press?
On mute.
Are you on mute, Day?
tomorrow.
We go to press tomorrow. Okay. And let's see, what I'm trying to figure there is I would like to use the study from the point of the spear, this issue of the spear, for next Sunday's study. Does it seem like that's going to be possible?
Yeah, well, I see an ink clicker, but I could put it on Hulu.
You could do what?
I could put on the Hulu News.
Okay.
So people could access it.
Okay, that would be good. I want to use the point of the spear because it deals with the elections and stuff like that. And I think it'd be a worthwhile discussion to have. And also, I just want to let people know, some people in this know that we have a meeting that's on the 27th, and I'm expecting those who, aware of that, who have a responsibility to be there to make that happen. Also, that we are in real crisis mode as it comes to Black Power 96, our radio station, and that the whole movement will be called on to take a real serious stance. We're going to have to go into campaign mode. That we've got 10 weeks before we're supposed to flip the switch on this radio station, and we are about 2 months behind in terms of actual status of our ability to do that, which means we're going to have to go in campaign mode and call on every resource that's available to us within the movement and elsewhere. So you should anticipate that. Also, the Black is Back Coalition is going to be having a national conference on April 9th in New York City. We're working to pull that together, and it's going to be on 2016 election and the struggle for self-determination. The Brenningsville newspaper is going to be coming out, as you just heard. They say we want to sell this paper. We are approximating the ability finally for the paper to pay for itself. And the more of us who are taking this paper out, and the more papers we are taking out, means that we will be much more competent in terms of that occurring. Those are some of the announcements that I needed to make. There are other announcements that I want to go ahead and see if we can. There's an event that's coming up. Is the Solidarity Movement have an event coming up sometime soon? USM? National Convention comes up in when?
April 16th and 17th.
April 16th and 17th, and here at Quabbin Hall in St. Petersburg. You have something here coming?
Comrades, yes. I wanted to announce on July 2nd to the 30th that we're going to be having a party intensive. This means for 30 long days, we're going to be doing work study training, physical training, practical training. We probably would get training around security. And if you're a leader in the African People's Socialist Party, we've asked you to send in your list of recommendations for the intensive, and we need for that list to be sent in immediately. We need to be able to start registering people because people are going to have to pay, for attending the intensive. Comrade Ghazi, do you have anything that?
You gotta hurry. You only got 2 minutes to do it. What is it?
Okay. I just want
to listen. Today is African Mothers, and I know we're doing something in Chicago, and we're doing something here in Houston. So those in Chicago, those in Houston, contact us, and I'll see how you can participate.
I just want to make sure that I've gotten everybody that participated this morning. If you wasn't in any of the roll calls, can you tell me your name if you're on now?
Keno's here.
Darnell and Chimaranga.
Darnell, Cham.
Keno.
Talisa. Vanetta.
Talithia, Vanetta. If your name, you have to call the names when they call them, Gaida, because if they haven't heard you say their name, they should tell you who they are.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have Talithia and Renetta. Anybody else?
Osenu.
No, who was that before? Osenu, okay.
4 feet.
Yeah, 4 feet. Anybody else? Will, quickly. Keno, we got him.
Thank you.
Who else?
Rich.
Who else? Kabina. Anybody else that wasn't any of the roll calls?
Okay, one final thing I want to say is that we protect our membership.
on YouTube.
Patricia and Louisa.
Okay. Well, the one thing I want to say is that we protect our membership. We don't talk about the numbers of people in our party or anything like that. The thing is that Malcolm X used to say,
he'll be back.
Uhuru.
Just wait, he'll be back.
Okay, all right.
Uhuru, comrade.
Unmuted.
Can't hear. Okay.
Uhuru, can you hear us now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, the thing is, the critical thing is that protecting the members of our party. Those of you who have the responsibility of keeping membership rolls and stuff like that, you should protect those with your life. 1, 2, we never say how many people are in the party. Our stance should be those who know, don't say, and those who say, don't know. And that should be our ongoing response.
Somebody has a question online.
What was the question online? Because we have to go. What is it? What is the question online?
You just said, may I ask a question?
Ask the question. Quickly. We got to go. You got to do it quickly because we have to get out of here.
I don't know.
If you want to ask the
So
question.
while we're waiting for the question to be asked, I just want to make sure that everybody knows if you have not signed up to join the party, please go to joinatst.org and fill out a form. If you've received your questionnaire, please fill out your questionnaire and send that back as soon as possible. Uhuru.
Urgency around that matter is something that cannot be overstated. We're in motion now in some very serious ways. So people who want to join the party should go to the website, and people who have not sent in comrade? The questionnaires should send those questionnaires in because we're making, some things happen, and it's important for that to occur. Go ahead.
It says, could Chairman please define the main priorities of the Uhuru movement right now?
No, we don't have time. The main priorities of the Uhuru movement is build and to consolidate the African People's Socialist Party itself, to develop and consolidate our capacity to. The real important issue now is to get Black Power 96, the radio station, FM radio station, established here in the city of St. Petersburg. We need technicians, we need money, we need people who engineers, people who have come with skills, people who can do anything that's associated with radio and who are generally smart, and whether you can know anything about radio or not, generally ambitious, or generally united with forwarding the revolutionary process. I want to thank everybody for coming on, and I do always intend to end this thing by 10 o'clock because I recognize that everybody has something to do, and the longer I keep you, the less likely you are to come on to the next meeting. Thank you so much, brothers and sisters and comrades. Uhuru.